Okay. Good morning. My name is Samantha Turner, and I'm the Workforce Development Coordinator for the Midlands Education and Business Alliance. Welcome to MEBA's webinar series, Ready, Set, Connect. Today's webinar is about the cost of your living. It is with great pleasure that I introduce you to our partner, Tom Ledbetter. Mr. Ledbetter is Associate Vice President of the Enterprise Campus at Midlands Technical College and owner of Next Phase Management. If you have questions for Mr. Ledbetter, please submit your questions by using the chat box at the bottom of the taskbar. If time permits, we will respond to those questions at the end of the webinar. If not, we will follow up after the session via email. I'll now turn it over to Mr. Tom Ledbetter.
We're making a headphone switch. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. We are excited to have everyone with us this morning, and what we're going to be doing is going through a presentation called The Cost of Your Living. I'll give you the brief background on this. I am the parent of 3 adult children, 2 who were very good students and 1 that dropped out of high school the day she turned 18. And this is a story that came together in coaching her on a budget for living by herself in her new adult world. So that's a very brief background, and I'll just go ahead and get started because I want to make sure we observe the time limits here and are responsible to everyone's time this morning. Again, welcome, and let's get started. The idea here is that we are going to answer this question. This is the question we'll answer. Where'd it go? If we can find the question. Here it is. What is the cost of my living? This is the question that I asked my young daughter. So in order to answer this question, we're going to create a lifestyle. Wait a minute. We're trying to key here. And because this is a PowerPoint, as we go through this thing, you have numbers. We're dealing with numbers in dollars and cents, and this means that while I cannot keep it updated, I have updated some of it. And red means that numbers are changing, and there are many reasons for these changes. And during the presentation I make to students, which is now, by my estimate, somewhere between 9,000 and 10,000 students have seen this presentation. Means that we engage them in understanding what's changing and what's going on. Go to the next slide. So let's answer this question. How much income do you need? Most students that I see in high school are talking about career. Most students that I see here at Midlands Technical College and teaching a freshman seminar are looking at careers and very exciting careers, but many of them are not spending the time looking at how much money they would make in this career. And the income is to answer the question is how much income do you need, and the remainder of the question is how much income do you need to live the lifestyle that you want to live. It's not a matter of need, it's how much do you want. So we're going to create a lifestyle, and we're going to do that around 5 categories of expenses. Now remember, this is from a conversation of a father with an 18-year-old daughter, and we'll talk about how much does it cost to feed yourself, how much does it cost to clothe yourself, how much does it cost for a place to live, how much is a social life going to cost, and then the penultimate activity, how much does it cost to own and operate an automobile. So let's give you an idea of how the model works right now. How many of you came to work this morning with $22 in your pocket? The answer to that question becomes definable here in just a moment, because in talking with my daughter, she did not know how to cook, and I knew that, and she knew that. So I said, how are you going to feed yourself? She said, I guess I'm going to be eating fast food. All right, so in this lifestyle, we feed ourselves at a fast food restaurant 3 times a day. So how much does it cost to feed only yourself each month? First day, 3 meals a day. Breakfast is an orange juice and a sausage biscuit from a fast food restaurant. At lunchtime, we go back to another fast food restaurant, hamburger, fries, and a drink, or something like that. And then for dinner, we go upscale a little bit. We actually capture dinner at the local Lizard Sticket. And meat and 3 and a glass of iced tea and leaving something for the server, you end up running about $12, and this adds up to the $22 that I asked you if you had in your pocket. Because if you feed yourself this way each month, you're going to end up spending $682 a month to feed yourself. Typically, with the students, this is the first aha of going through this. They can identify with $682 a month. And you talk about, you get questions, well, Mr. Ledbetter, I can cook. Well, that's another decision tree. If you can cook, that means you do menu planning. That means you go to the grocery store. That means you need to have a place to put the food, something to cook it with, something to eat it with. Those are all other decisions that end up building a different type of lifestyle. So this is how the model works and how we're going to go through it. So let's just follow along here and have some fun with it. Next up is clothing. Of the 3 children and my wife, my youngest daughter and my wife were very close together in their clothing atmosphere and understanding. Neither one were going to go out without the makeup on unless they were dressed to the nines. So I started out asking my daughter, I said, how much are you going to spend on clothes each month? Oh, I don't know, $300–400. So I had to get it back out of the stratosphere and back down to earth. And so we argued to the point of getting it for new clothes, spending about $140 a month. Now, here's a discussion point with the students, because you go to them and you say, if you're a mall shopper, which my daughter is, how much are you going to be able to get? What are you going to be able to buy for $140? And what you find out with the students is there is a lot of difference in their attitudes about how they shop, particularly if they're spending their money or spending mom and dad's money. So it makes a little difference. But I said, okay, once you bought the clothes, you've got to maintain them. And you're not living at home, so that means you don't have access to mom and dad's washing machine and dryer. So you're going to go to the local laundromat. And maintenance of these clothes for washing and drying is going to run you somewhere around, I'm going to say $30 a month. I've got a friend in town who does laundromats. He charges $2.25 to $2.50 a load to wash, $2 a load to dry, plus buying your washing powder and fabric softener and everything else. You're going to spend $7–8 a load. And unless you want everything to be pink or gray, you need to separate color fast from non-color fast, so you're washing 2 loads. So I figure, you can get in and out of the laundromat once or twice a month, maybe $30, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, depending on what your buying habits are and how many clothes you're trying to wash. But then you've got maintenance, which you've got suits and skirts and blouses and everything else that come into play. And in today's market, if you're dressing professionally, you're going to spend some money each month on dry cleaning. So in this lifestyle, we're spending $220 a month on clothing. At this point in time with the students, we've had several rounds of conversation with them about their lifestyle and cleaning and having some fun with going a month without going to the laundromat, and how would you do that and everything else. So the group is very lively at this point. And then we come to a place to live. I asked my daughter, where would you like to live? And she said, and we live here in Columbia. So she said, well, Dad, I want to live at the center of the universe for anybody between the ages of 18 and 25. And most students sitting in the room will realize that she's talking about 5 Points down at Hardin Street and Divine. And I said, okay, well, at the time we were looking, there were no realtors giving and no legitimate realtors offering anything downtown in that area. It was all run by folks whose business was to rent apartments to students, and we all know who's paying for the students' apartment. It's mom and dad. So I went to the Free Times and got this ad out of the Free Times for an apartment, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, unfurnished. Now I've got unfurnished in red because we're going to come back and discuss this. And at this point, I will inquire, do you understand what W/D is? And they realize that that's a washer and dryer, but I emphasize that that's a washer and dryer connections. The plumbing's there. You need to bring your own washer and dryer. For my daughter's purpose, when we were looking at it, what the real estate market would say is a full kitchen contains 3 different items. That's it's a dishwasher, a stove, and a refrigerator. For her lifestyle, because she's not cooking, the absence of a microwave was fairly critical. And we have some fun with the students and talking about how to do this. When we talk about amenities, however, this is where it gets serious. Because I'm inquiring of the students at this point, what's an amenity when you're talking about real estate, and they identify fairly quickly. Does it have a pool? Does it have a tennis court? I've told them, very up front, I'm very much more concerned about whether the parking lot's fenced, whether it's lighted. Do you have to go in through a lobby to get to the rooms? And unfortunately for this apartment that we were looking at, this was like one of the old style Holiday Inns where every room was addressable from the sidewalk. And everybody knows what's going on in the medium neighborhood down in 5 Points, because it's a bar party area. But I've emphasized to them at this point, there's also a lot of crime against property and crime against person that happens there. And so for that reason, I'd say it's probably okay to be out by yourself during the daytime, but after dark, you probably don't want to be. You want to be in groups of 2 or 3 or 4 or more. But for this apartment, as listed, the price was $550 a month. And I emphasize at this point that that's $550 a month rent. To get the key requires the first month's rent and the last month's rent and a 1-month security deposit up front, which is $1,650. Now remember, these guys are renting to college students whose parents are paying the bill. So, tumbling up $1,650 for them is you getting it from mom and dad. My daughter turned around to me at this point. She said, well, when can you write me the check? And I said, well, you're an adult. I'm not going to write you a check for this. You have to save up the money. This is one of the reasons that it took her 9 years to move out of the house after these conversations started. So we've got food, clothing, and shelter, the basic hierarchy of needs here, and now we get into a social life. Now the social life, at this point, I break into conversations that I have had with my lawyer buddies in reference to courtrooms, and they will say, Mr. Ledbetter, if you have a good lawyer is never going to ask a question in court that he or she doesn't already know the answer to. So I'll make the point. So if your lawyer's being surprised by the answers, get you another lawyer because they're not doing the job you need to do. Well, I got about 15 seconds in this conversation. Remember, this is a father and an 18-year-old daughter talking. I'm asking her about her social life. 15 seconds into this conversation, I decided I didn't really want to hear what the answers that were coming from my 18-year-old's mouth, but I pushed ahead on with it anyway. A very serious point at this time is that I also recognize that when we started talking about this, we turned the corner up. My wife and I turned the corner up on what was the front door of an alcohol dependence problem with this 18-year-old. So this is a very, very serious point right now. And it got worse before it got better, but this was our first view that we had of it. So in this social life, I make fun and I say, Dad's going to define the social life for the purposes of this discussion. And I don't want you to be a wallflower. And with most students these days, they have no idea what a wallflower is. And I'd be willing to bet there's folks online this morning that have no idea what a wallflower is. But this is a person who is not antisocial. They are afraid of society. They're afraid to be social. They'll go into a room in a social situation, they'll find a wall and back up against it, primarily to keep somebody from sneaking up on them from behind, and they just plaster themselves there and they don't move. Well, that's one end of the scale. The other end of the scale is a barfly. And the barfly kind of weaves its way in and out of every bar on the street every night. And in this conversation, at this point, I found out that a young daughter was much closer to one end of the scale than she was to the other end of the scale. And she was consuming alcohol. And I said, but you're 18 years old. How are you buying alcohol? And she says, Dad, I don't have to buy alcohol. Says I go in these places, people buy me drinks. And it almost derailed the discussion, and I came back to that several times later because this got very serious before it was all over with. But for the purposes of the presentation, I come back to this and say we're just going to have a normal social life, and Dad gets to define normal. So in a normal social life, we go on dates. And here again, I'm dating myself in front of most of these students because they have lost concept, if they ever had a concept, of what a date was. So I asked them, I said, what's a date? Um, and you get all the answers. So there's a spectrum of answers I get, but what I'm pushing at them is if I will pick a teacher in the room at this point, and I said, if I call up Miss Jones and ask her to go out and she says yes, I get to pay for it. That's the date, and that's the financial consideration that we've got here. And I've said it's 2 times a week you're going to go on a date, and it's $40 each time you go out. Now I did have $25 in there, but I kept getting a lot of ridicule from the students. 2 people can't do anything for 25 bucks anymore. So I guess my old age is showing there. But I went back to this and said, okay, let's just keep it at 40. You do it twice a week. You do it 4 weeks a month. That's $320. And then you've got special dates that you only do twice a month because they're so expensive. And I've got a special date coming up tomorrow. I have my tomorrow. I will have been happily married for 38 years to the same woman, and I'd love to be able to get out of that tomorrow night with only $75, but I don't think it's going to happen. So in this lifestyle, we're spending $470 a month. Now, the way to catch this question to the students is that $470 doesn't sound like a lot of money. However, can you live the social life that you want to live for $15 a day? Because that's what $470 a month is $15 a day. Now that gets them thinking, and then all of a sudden they're down scrambling and writing numbers down to get it going. So we leave the discussion about that, and we come to the end-all be-all of a young adult life, and that is the ownership and operation of an automobile. My 3 children are plus or minus 2 weeks for being exactly 2 years apart. So when my son turned 15 and a half and got his driver's license, said, I've got a deal for you. I will buy you a used car. I will maintain the car for you. I will put gas in it. I will pay the insurance for it. And all you have to do is drive your sisters back and forth to school, or drive your sisters to school in the morning. Because I was doing that, and was riding all over Lexington County in the morning. And any of you from Lexington County knows that's not where you want to be, dropping kids off for school in the morning. So he did that reliably and safely for 2 years. He brought me a Palmetto Fellow scholarship. The money I was saving for him to go to college, I bought him a new car, got the old car, and gave it to his younger sister. Same deal, sweetie. Do this, and I'll take care of the car for you. She did it reliably and repeatedly for 2 years. She brought me a Palmetto Fellow scholarship. I brought her a new car. I gave the old car to my youngest daughter. At the time she got the car, it had 185,000 miles on it, and it was 11 years old, and she drove it 3 weeks and wrecked it. So we had to start talking about a new car, and this is where the conversation came in. I said, I don't want to get you you're not going to get a new car. You're going to get an economical to own and drive 3-year-old basic transportation. So I got her a 3-year-old Nissan Sentra that was financed about $10,000. And here again, I asked the students, what does MP stand for? And we talk about monthly payments, talk about due on the 1st, delinquent on the 5th, repossessable on the 30th. Because the repossession of automobiles today has become a big, big market. And unfortunately, most all devices today either come from the factory with a GPS location device on it, or they are installed before they are resold as a used car. And this is becoming much more prominent, much more prevalent in the community, and there is very little latitude in the finance community for somebody who is late on an automobile. You could be coming out of Bilo on Saturday morning carrying 2 bags of groceries and say, oh my God, my car's been stolen. No, it got repossessed while you were in Bilo, because they know where that car is. But unfortunately, the monthly payment's not the only cost associated with owning a car. In South Carolina, you have property taxes on an automobile. South Carolina, I believe, is one of 2 states remaining in the country where there's a separate tax lien on an automobile versus your personal property. Everybody else rolls it up into personal property. The car had a tax value of $480, and I put it down as $40 a month. Unfortunately, you can't pay taxes in South Carolina on a monthly basis. So once a year, you come up with $480, and you go to the county courthouse and you pay and you get your new registration. You get the little year sticker to go in the upper right-hand corner of your license plate. And it pays to not let that license expire. The next cost associated with owning a car is insurance. And insurance in South Carolina operates on 4 variables. The first variable is the sex of the driver. Second variable is the age of the driver. Third variable is the driving experience of the driver. And the fourth variable is what's being driven. So a female under the age of 21 with less than 3 years driving experience driving this car to get the insurance that I want is going to pay $150 a month. And here's where we have some fun, because my daughter's driving record was not all that stellar, and I tell them about how much she was paying. At one time, she was paying me $198 a month for the car, and she was paying me right close to $300 a month for the insurance to drive the car because of her driving record. So I'll make some points there and teaching points here, and then you've got gas. Now, this is one of the conversation pieces that comes up, because I put this together, and it wasn't that long ago when gas was $3.25 a gallon. And now I saw gas on the way to work this morning that's $3.52 in Lexington. So it's up and down. But since I've been giving this presentation, I've bought gas at $1.40 a gallon, and I've paid $4.15 a gallon for gas. So it's a wild card variable in your budget. But the total cost of owning and operating an automobile in this model is $870. Good rule of thumb here for the students is whatever your monthly payment is, double it, and you will approximate the cost of ownership for budgetary purposes. So we come down here, we've got our food, clothing, shelter, social life, and automobile number, and I asked the mathematicians in the room to add it all up, and it totals out, excuse me here, I'll click off of here, it totals out to $2,792 a month. Okay, time to step back and say, okay, what do you get for this? Well, you're eating fast food 3 times a day, which is probably not good for your health or your complexion. You're wearing rags as far as my daughter's concerned. You're living in an unheated, unwatered, unlighted, empty apartment. You're living in an abominable social life, and you're driving a 3-year-old used car. And that's your lifestyle. And $2,792 is a lot of money, but it's not everything, because there are what I call oops factors. Oh, geez, I forgot. Would you like running water and lights and stuff, commodes that flush and everything else in your new apartment? Well, how about Roadrunner for the computer you don't own, or cable TV for the TV that you don't own, and all these other things, and that's going to add about $250 a month. Second thing up is benefit cost, and I make a point at this time that the model itself assumes that you've got a job somewhere and that you're making money and you're taking benefits out, and the $100 that I put in here is a variable number, but that's about what it costs an employee of the state of South Carolina on a monthly basis to insure themselves only. So that's the number that I use. And then you've got consumer debt, and this is where I reference back to the unfurnished apartment. I ask all of them, have you been offered a credit card? I have students in high schools that are getting credit card offers in the mail, and a little advice and consent here on credit cards. But I said in this model, we've used those credit cards and some store credit, and we've furnished our apartment, and we spent about $2,300, $2,500 furnishing the apartment, and we're paying $75 a month on that. Point I make at this time is that if you pay only $75 a month, it only takes you 4 years to pay off $2,500. And that $75 a month is variable in itself, because if you're late 2 months in a row or miss one payment entirely in the state of South Carolina, they can take your interest rates to 29%. And that would make $75 $123 a month just on the change in interest rates. Retirement plans, I go into retirement plans versus Social Security, and I put $150 in for a retirement plan, because it's going to come out on a monthly basis. And then because I talk to a lot of students who are going towards college, I say, okay, let's talk about student loans, because those of you who are guidance counselors and those of you who are steering students towards higher education know that that student loans and loan debt is a big hot topic right now in higher education. So I want to talk about that. And I load a number in here for $150 in red because it's wildly variable. But if you look at the total here, that's another $725 a month. But let's cut back to student loans right quick. And these are the numbers that we get on an annual basis on student loans. These are average numbers in the United States from a public institution. So a student graduating with a two-year associate degree from a public two-year college typically owes $10,000 in student loans when they graduate, and that's about $75 a month on current structure. A four-year degree, what I've got in here is the 2012 number, which is $27,000. I just saw the 2013 number earlier this week, and it's now $28,750 as an average. So it's about $195. To go on to a master's degree or an MBA is another 2 years, and it's another $40,000. You get a JD or a law degree, which is 3 years, and in South Carolina there are two law schools, and they both have an $80,000 tuition. And doctors, I ask them who wants to be an MD, and I show them that on average, when you graduate from med school, not when you finish your medical training, but when the day that they call you a doctor before your specialty, you owe somebody $350,000. And this has got them set back in their seats at this point, as far as these numbers are concerned. But there are three very important points about student loans. Number one, it still is and typically is the cheapest money you can get your hands on if you need to borrow money to go to school. Number two, you don't have to start paying the money back until you finish your education. So if somebody started out with a two-year degree, they would and went on to become a doctor, they wouldn't start paying back these loans until they actually hit their terminal degree. And thirdly, there's a ceiling on how much you can pay each year for student loans, and it's capped currently at 15% of your adjusted gross income. The President Obama tried to drop that to 10% early in his first term, and he was not able to do that, and so it still sits at 15%. So if I take these new numbers and add them all up, this adds up to $3,517 a month to live this lifestyle. And here's the point. If you're going to spend $3,517 a month, you need to be making more than $3,517 a month because of a little thing called taxes. So if $3,517 is after taxes and the tax rate's 28.5%, which is 13% federal, 7% state, and 8.5% FICA, then that $3,517 needs to be $4,918 gross in order to be able to spend $3,517. Now, my background is in manufacturing, and I make this point early on with the students because this presentation for the students typically takes about an hour. But at this point, we're a half an hour in, but we're very close to the end. So if you hang with me for just a second, we'll get there. I convert this number into dollars per hour because the students don't have a frame of reference to these dollar numbers, but dollars per hour they do. So, and this is the wrong number. Pardon that. 4,200 is the new number, but this $59,016 is the new annual salary that you'd have to be making to live this lifestyle. And there are 40 hours in the work week, and there's 52 weeks in the year, so that means there's 2,080 hours in the standard work year. You want to know how much this pays per hour? You take $59,016 divided by 2,080, and you end up with a job that pays $28.37 an hour to live this lifestyle. And here's where I'll launch into comparative analysis of what kind of jobs can you get. If you graduate from Midlands Technical College with an associate degree in nursing and passed the state boards, this is plus or minus a couple of dollars an hour where you're going to start in your career. If you get a two-year associate's degree in automotive mechanics from Midlands Tech, which has embedded in it two Society of Automotive Engineer certifications, and you've got those certifications and you pass the test, you're worth $30 to $35 an hour to a dealership here in town to bring those to the table. I can take you to welding school here and train you to be a welder, get you hired by SCANA, they'll train you to become a nuclear welder, and a nuclear welder can make $50 to $75 an hour working as a licensed nuclear welder. You can go, and especially this is great with teachers in the room, you can go to University of South Carolina, get your bachelor's degree, graduate magna cum laude from a school of education with early childhood education, turn right back around, get your master's degree, graduate to the top of your class, go into the job market. Any school district in South Carolina will pay you $20 an hour to start. And they're looking at $28 an hour, and all of a sudden it becomes relatively clear to them that it's not, you have to look a little deeper than just the amount of education and the type of education that you have. So at this point, I asked the question, what skills do you have or will you have, and what specific and detailed knowledge do you command that would cause me as a hiring manager to want to pay you, whoops, let's back it up, to want to pay you 28, let me back this up, I missed it right quick, to want to make me want to pay you $28.37 an hour. And somewhere it must have missed it. Yeah, it did. Okay. So, well, where'd it go? I'm doing something here. Hold on. Let's see. I've enlarged the screen somehow. Technical difficulty. Pilot error here. There we go. All right. Now keep going. No, let's go forward. Okay. Now at this point, it comes to my first stopping point, because I will make the commitment to them that as they're starting their career and as they're typically freshmen in college, when I talk to them, that they can go downstairs and they can go to the U.S. Department of Labor.gov and they can inquire about any career that they've got, any career that they're interested in, and they can find out the national, regional, state, and local rates of pay for these careers. The second point is that as they're looking at what they want to do, they need to spend as much time considering what they want to do in their career as they do considering how they would like to live. Because it does you no good to want to live a $100,000 a year lifestyle if you're in a career that you're going to make $50,000. So I move them forward here to look at these careers, and I finish up with a statement about core requirements that employers are looking for today. First of all, I don't need you to be a scientist, but you need to be comfortable with science. You need to have some science in your background. And I did it again. Sorry. I've got my pilot here is trying to keep me. There we go. All right. And secondly, I don't need you to be a math major, but you need to be comfortable with math. You know, my point for me is I use algebra all the time. Calculus, you're going to have it if you go into a technical field somewhere. Reading is absolutely necessary. Reading is the one skill that you've got to graduate high school with, and you've got to perfect while you're in college, because you need to read to comprehend, you need to read to locate information, you need to be able to think, you need to be social, because as you graduate from high school and college, you're going to be going from being graded as an individual to graded as a team member, and you need to understand leadership and followership. And lastly, I call it the U view, but if you're going to sit in front of me and tell me that you're worth $28.37 an hour, you better be exuding a lot of self-confidence in yourself and as you move forward. And at this point, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of the presentation, and I'd like to open it up to comments if there are any, or questions. But thank you again for participating in the webinar this morning. Do we have any questions? That scared all of you, should.
Russ,
Yeah.
do you have a question? Oh. Okay, we'll go ahead and close it out then. Did y'all enjoy it overall?
All right. Is it possible to email this PowerPoint? Yes, I will. It will come to you through MEBA, and they can do it to you. It is. I do recognize here that it is copyrighted to to MEBA. All right. So I developed it and gave them the copyright on it. But again, thank you for participating this morning. Thanks y'all for being there. And if you don't mind, send back to Samantha any recommendations you might have for improvement to the model. I like to keep things fresh. So thanks again, and have a great day. Okay, hold on.
Thank you for joining our Ready, Set, Connect webinar series today. Please join us again on Thursday, December 18th, 2014 at 9 o'clock a.m. We'll be presenting on hot jobs of the future. Some of these jobs are some of which Mr. Ledbetter just mentioned in his presentation. This webinar is geared towards middle school and high school students who are in the career and college planning process. So we look forward to having you join us on December 18th at 9 o'clock. Thank you and have a great day.